I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm chatting with Molly Maxwell, who is a Board Certified Behavior Analyst. She's been in the field for 15 plus years, and she just so happens to be one of my best friends. We are getting into the micro details about behavior and habit change, really micro stuff, like the split-second thoughts we have that prevent us from starting or following through on something we really want to do for ourselves. And I used a few habits I'm working on as examples. So you can plug what Molly shares with me into whatever new habit you're considering for yourself. The habit examples I'm using include one habit that I do daily, but I really want to increase the duration for. One thing I do a few times per week, but want to actually decrease the duration of. And then one thing I'm not really doing at all. So Molly is going to give us some really hot tips for increasing and decreasing a behavior and starting a new one altogether. It was so fascinating to learn all of the different approaches we can take to removing the barriers between our current habits and the ones we'd like to have or develop. Molly shared the principles of behavior change, including reinforcement, punishment, which is not as scary as it sounds, by the way. Stay with us, and extinction. So, the things that can help us increase, decrease, and maintain behaviors. So, you can try different things to see what personally motivates you and excites you to take action. So I'll just give you some quick examples of these because we really focused more on the solutions today versus, the theory and digging really deep into these definitions. So positive reinforcement is adding something good to strengthen a behavior. So an example could be a child finishes their homework and they get a sticker, so they're more likely to do homework again. Negative reinforcement is taking away something bad to strengthen a behavior. So, for example, you buckle your seatbelt and that annoying beeping stops, so you're more likely to buckle up quickly next time. Positive punishment is adding something bad to weaken a behavior. A child touches a hot stove and they feel pain, so they're less likely to touch it again. Negative punishment is taking away something good to weaken a behavior. So a teen misses curfew, their parents take away their phone, they're less likely to miss curfew again. And the last one, extinction. So you stop giving the reward and the behavior fades. Example, a child whines to get attention, the parents stop reacting to it. So over time, the whining decreases and may stop altogether. So these are the 5 main ways that you can approach your own behavior change. We also talked about the similarities and differences between habit change for kids, teens, and adults, how perfectionism can get in the way of realizing that we actually have built a new habit. And we just need to let go of what we think it should look like. We address things like, are you someone who needs to hit rock bottom to start a new habit? Did you used to have a habit that was really beneficial to you and then you fell off of it for whatever reason? Are you punishing yourself without realizing it? And that's the reason you're not following through on something good for yourself. We are hacking all of this today. P.S. We are not focusing on how significant trauma can be an obstacle to or a motivator for habit change. So, if you become aware of a pretty deep fear that is rooted in something from your past, and that is the thing that is driving you to inaction or action, and you're not feeling well internally either way, that is something to address with a professional, a therapist, before applying what we're discussing today. Today's tips are really focused on things we want to do or stop doing for ourselves to promote well-being, but they're not fear-based. So you're not worried that you won't be worthy of love or good enough or safe if you don't start or break the habit of, I don't know, checking your mail every day or something, right? So I just wanted to share that little disclaimer for this. I'll also give you an update on how I'm doing with these habits that I shared that I'm working on at the end of the episode, as well as my biggest takeaway and strategy for integrating them. And I'm aware that some of the things we're getting into with my habits seem very trivial. You might not give a shit about what's going through my mind when I'm trying to figure out if I want to meditate or not, right? But you might be feeling this same way about a new habit you want to start by dismissing it as silly or stupid or trivial or that it doesn't matter. But these tiny little tweaks are what help us take better care of ourselves. And when we feel better, we're able to care for our loved ones and our community and contribute the way that we want. So don't knock something you want to implement thinking it's not going to make a difference in your life. Maybe you're someone who wants to try to start your day off by sitting outside for 3 minutes or something before you start work, which might seem trivial, but then you start doing it, you actually find that by starting your day off that way, work feels more manageable, you're less stressed. Then when you're off work, you feel more relaxed in the evening, you sleep better. It's this snowball effect for your health and well-being. These little things are truly the foundation to our habits and behaviors, and they impact everything. So that is why we're getting into the weirdest little details of my mind today, because I am volunteering myself as your test subject. You're welcome. Today's episode really combines two of my favorite things, which is how fascinating the human brain is and talking to my best friend. So here is my chat with Molly. Well, hello, Molly.
Hello, Delanie Fischer.
Oh my God.
Nice
When is
to
the
see
last
you.
time I called you by your other name? That is so weird.
I know.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you about this because you are an expert in this field, and I am so passionate about habit change and habit building. So I'm
Yeah.
just excited to learn about a whole new side of you today in a deeper way.
I feel like we talk about it in bits and pieces. So it'll be
Yes.
interesting to see if there's like new information or just the way that we're speaking today, like more formally, that it kind of
Yes.
sinks in a different way. Or I don't
We're
know.
so
We'll see.
professional right now. Oh my gosh. So
Absolutely.
can we just start with sharing a little bit about the work that you do and maybe also any misconceptions there might be about the work that you do or the methods or anything that you use in your line of work?
I'm a board certified behavior analyst. All behavior analysts operate under the governing body. So we have an ethical code we need to abide by. Our organization in general, it has been controversial in the past, the field of behavior analysis, because
Oh.
you can change behavior, right? You have, when you understand, like, oh, I can decrease this behavior by doing something aversive, right, to this person. Like, and in the past, of course, there's been different things, but like shock therapy, right, is like a more popular, well-known
Oh,
version
yeah.
of that. Yeah. So when you're applying these really aversive practices to change behavior, yeah, you can change the behavior, but you're opening up the floodgates for a lot of other
Wow.
things,
Right, like the
trauma and
damage. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so our field has evolved so much in behavior analysis because we understand what those like aversive practices can do. And just because they're effective in one way, right, it's not serving the person the best outcome. So one of the big things we'll talk about today is reinforcement. The board that we have to abide by, they say we have to use reinforcement principles first before punishment. So there's no longer practices in play of shock therapy. It used to be one of the techniques that for whatever reason sticks out to me is spraying bleach in someone's face if they did something.
Oh my
So things like
gosh.
so things like
Wow.
that. So you can see, like, as a parent, if you're like looking into these, like, oh, I heard applied behavior analysis is the treatment for my kid who might have a developmental disability or autism. Like, obviously, when you're looking at things like that, you're like, no way, that's not, I'm not going to send my
Right.
kid into that. And so those were strategies that no longer are used. And now we look at things through the lens of what is this person getting from this behavior? What needs to be changed? What needs to be taught so that they can like contact what's reinforcing in a better way without using those other procedures that again were maybe
Right.
effective but not not kind and humane.
Right.
So it's really interesting, and it sounds very alarming, right? But when you compare, like, I guess, how far just the medical field has come in general, right? In like the last 50 years, what we know now, like the introduction
Right.
of AI or all the technologies available, the medical field itself has changed significantly, And
Yeah.
so, as a behavior analyst doing applied behavior analysis treatment, that field has been young. It's a young field. So we've come really far in like a short amount of time.
Every part of the medical field has had some kind of transformation. I mean, they used to give like lobotomies for migraines, and now we give them a freaking
exactly.
Tylenol, right? So
Yeah,
I mean, and it doesn't mean that we're scared to maybe go see a doctor because we think they're going to give us a lobotomy, you know? So it's like
comparison. Yeah, or like hysteria, right? Like we would be diagnosed back in the
right,
day with hysteria. Yeah, so
right. So
that
yeah,
evolution is important to acknowledge, especially when you're talking about some, people's kids, like their most precious, like members of their families, right? So I can
right.
understand the hesitation, but so I would really like implore, anybody, any families who are curious about ABA or have a child who's been diagnosed with autism or just interested in this field in general of like what are you talking about behavior change, just look into ABA companies, and if you find something that isn't a good fit, there's so many out there now, you can find something that's better suited to you and that you're comfortable with, but really just like not letting that ugly history impact like what could be so crucial for your child's development in the future. Because I've had so many families where that hesitation, has lost years, right? And they tell me now, like, oh, if I knew back then, I would have started this a long time ago because that behavior change. And I know we're talking a lot about more like working with kids and the applied behavior analysis part right now, but that is a big part of my day-to-day job. I do work with kids with autism and developmental disabilities. That's my primary focus of behavior analysis. And so I just want to make sure like, any families that are questioning or just need resources, that something that maybe they saw on a message board or heard, even 5 years ago, like our field has evolved so much.
Thanks for clearing that up. I didn't even know that was something that was happening. We try to give people as many options as possible for them to explore to figure out what the right fit is for them. Is there a difference between teaching kids versus teens versus adults?
Oh,
Behavior change, habit change.
yeah.
What are the differences? What are the similarities?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, great question. There's a big difference in terms of what you're going to teach a kid that's 3 years old, right? Versus that's 15 years old. And now we know, like, under that autism umbrella, there's a lot of different symptoms and behaviors that someone might engage in. So just because you have autism, there's like this old saying, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because everyone with autism is so different. And I know a lot of people, even with like just being mindful about the language used around being diagnosed with autism, some people prefer autistic person or being like having that be their label. And the more traditional wording was person with autism, that person first language. And so it's interesting to me how there's that shift. And so in one way, if a kid is able to tell me, like a teenage client, or I have an older adult client right now too, if they're able to tell me what their preference is, then that's helpful. Otherwise, I just go by like what their parents prefer. But for example of like just those differences and what I would teach a 3-year-old kid versus like a 15-year-old, 20-year-old client, if we're working on social skills, right? Like I'm not gonna teach conversational skills to a 3-year-old. It might be responding to their name or being able to answer what their name is. It's not like developmentally appropriate yet, right, for certain behaviors. And so that's been a big check too. And like throughout my career in the past, I've been in the field for 15 years. I used to think like, oh yeah, great. If they have this skill, like let's kind of move on to the next skill, or like, even if it's above kind of like the age norm, we're not just like endlessly piling on the skills that they have or the skill sets, even though we're making progress. We have to be mindful of like, well, if they're at their age norms, then kind of our job here is done, and that's always the end goal with my kids and my families, is working our way out of a job so they're as independent as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of trying to figure out what is age appropriate for everybody, like the type of workload, and also how you explain things and how you practice them,
And
I'm
how
sure.
I engage with them, right? Like,
Right.
like that person first language, or what if there's any other cultural differences too that I need to be mindful of. So
Yeah.
every
think about.
exactly. But it's like keeps things interesting for sure.
Yeah. Now, are there certain myths about behavioral change or habits that you would like to debunk, as far as, I don't know, you hear like you should only focus on one habit at a time. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Does it actually take 90 days to change a behavior or a habit? Like, have you noticed that the narratives don't quite match your experience, or do they?
Yeah. So one big thing to recognize in behavior analysis is this principle of reinforcement. So in everyday language, you might say like, "Oh, yeah, I ate some ice cream to reinforce, I don't know, I got some
Reading?
work done." Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you might use that term reinforcement as like a more like a substitute for a preferred thing, right? But in behavior analysis, when we're talking about reinforcement, we're talking about trends. And so we're really talking about a behavior increasing over time. So there's two big principles of reinforcement. Basically, are you removing something from your environment, from your experience, from your mindset, whatever it is? Are you removing something to increase a behavior over time? Or are you adding something to increase a behavior over time? And so if you're saying, yeah, I let myself eat some ice cream because I read earlier, it's like, okay, that's one data point. That's not a trend yet. And so if that's
Right.
your trend over time, like if your reading behavior goes up because you give yourself ice cream every day, you might have different problems.
Take notes, people.
It's when we see that behavior increasing that you're aiming to increase, then that's when we can say, okay, it's reinforcing, it's functioning as a reinforcer. And
Right.
so a lot of times what I'll hear is, oh, that's not a reinforcer, or that's not my kid doesn't like reinforcement or something like that. And it's like, oh no, we just need to kind of dig down to what the barriers here are. Maybe it's not strong enough of a reinforcer. Maybe there's too much time in between. And that's really what the problem is. You're like a behavior detective trying to figure out how to make this behavior increase that you want to, or how to make a behavior decrease that might be unsafe or unhealthy. And that's another thing. Like you can give a kid candy, right, for doing a certain task. But that's another controversial thing because it's like, well, now you're feeding into like other bad habits or other, issues. So that might be something else that we have to think about, or that we have to come up with. Like, okay, well, we know, yeah, eating a bowl of ice cream is going to reinforce your reading behavior, but maybe we shouldn't
at what
do that.
cost?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of things to
Interesting.
consider.
Oh my God, I love this term, behavior detective. This is so
Yeah,
good. And
yeah,
it really makes you realize how creative your job is, because when you hear
yeah.
behavior analysts, you kind of hear very analytical and data
Oh
and
my
numbers,
God, yeah,
but you have to come up with so many creative solutions that are
yeah.
individualized for people and
Totally.
trying to crack the code. And that sounds like pretty fun in a lot of
Yeah, no, yeah. And I love how you said individualized, because that is a big focus of our treatment is, yeah, I'm not going to give you access to a video game as a 3-year-old, whereas a 15-year-old, maybe that would be, right up your alley, or that's something that
Yeah.
is interesting to you. And so in general, again, taking a step back and thinking of just that term means a behavior is increasing over time. It's like, okay, well, if we know the behavior isn't increasing over time, that's not a reinforcer. So we have to, yeah, dig deeper. We got to maybe try other things like maybe it's toys that your kid has never played with before. It's activities you've never tried, right? Like,
Right. I thought it would be fun if you could help me come up with some kind of game plan for some new habits I'm trying to build. And I
okay,
picked a few that I feel like are in different points of the habit building process. Number one, I'm trying to meditate more, do more meditation in the day. I already meditate daily, but it's like for
mhm,
30 seconds here, a minute here. I would like
okay,
to meditate for like 5 minutes in a row.
okay,
So
huh,
this is a habit I'm already doing, but I want to deepen, I guess.
okay.
That
Yeah,
sounded
yeah,
creepy, but that's
yeah.
how I want to do more of that
In
one,
your
right?
meditation, yeah,
Let's deepen that shit. And
yeah,
then I'm also trying to watch less TV. So this is one that I'm not consistent. Some days I feel like I'm pretty good at it, and some days I'm
yeah,
not. And so this is one I want to be more consistent with.
okay,
So that's maybe a different phase of this process.
yeah, yeah,
And then the third one would be, I would really like to start going to bed earlier. And I'm not doing this one at all. This
okay.
is just not even here.
This is a
So
lot of work.
this is a lot of work. So I got one that doesn't exist yet, one
Uh-huh.
that exists daily, but I'd like to just increase it, and
Okay.
one that's a little all over the place, but I'm doing it a few times a week.
Okay, yes, I love these examples because they are very different behaviors.
Right.
And so, one of the things that I love about these behaviors too is that in your improvement of them, what you're
Right.
striving for is very different. So, that first one, like you said,
Oh,
the duration is what you
yes.
want to change, right? So, let's just start with
Meditation.
meditation. And
Oh,
so,
I'm so excited, you guys. I love this shit. Okay. Okay.
all right,
So,
let's
all
come up
right.
with your strategies.
I'm going from like 30 seconds, a minute here or there, different
Okay.
times of the day. And I
Yeah.
would like to just do it for like minimum 5 minutes. So whatever comes up for you, that could help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, first of all, we'll start with identifying like why that's important to you. So, what is
Right.
reinforcing about meditating? Because being
Mhm.
able to, yeah, think about what you're getting from it or getting
Right.
away from. Okay, well, when you're meditating, you're eliminating the outside noise, right? Like that might be
Yeah.
something that if you're like taking away the outside noise and giving yourself that one-on-one time.
My
Yeah.
private time.
Yeah, you're yeah. It's like one-on-one. I guess that's not
Yeah,
the right. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is a different M word. Now we get what's going on here. When I think about what the why behind increasing this behavior,
Yeah.
I notice that on days that I meditate, especially a little bit longer,
Mhm.
I'm less stressed. I'm more present. I don't have that
Okay.
sense of urgency throughout my day. I also
Okay.
make better decisions. I am more mindful in my decision
Interesting.
making where I actually take better care of myself with what I'm eating, or maybe I decide to go on a walk that day. I feel a little bit more energized. There's
So
so many positive things that come out of it.
that is amazing because it's so interesting to me too. So in behavior analysis, we've been studying more of the benefits of teaching kids mindfulness skills.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see research show one of the benefits of having kids practice mindfulness techniques
Yeah.
was their IQ scores increased. Yeah. And
Whoa.
actually what you're speaking to as well of that being aware of what's going on in your body, have this emotion, that's totally fine, right? You know, feel angry, upset, whatever it is, but sit in it, don't react right away, right? That's really like
Yes.
what when you're saying you're making better decisions or less like impulsive decisions.
Yes,
It sounds like,
exactly.
yeah, you know, for a small kid, it might be, okay, well, I'm not making that impulsive decision to, yeah, smash this thing when I get upset. So
Exactly.
love your identified reinforcers.
Thank you.
Yeah,
A plus for me.
yes, exactly. Yeah, already done. Yeah.
So
So
why the
then,
fuck am I not doing
yeah,
it then, Molly?
I know exactly. And reminding yourself of your reinforcers, right? Like,
Right.
so maybe you have that alarm on your phone with all the benefits, like tied into your reminder,
Mhm.
right? Like fucking practice your meditation right now so that you can feel better later in the day. You know, whatever
Right.
makes it like present to you to like, okay, this is why it's important. Because yeah, there's a million things we should be doing, or we do behaviors that we know are harmful because we don't get that benefit immediately. And
Yes.
so there might be something else too. And maybe with meditation, this is a little bit different because right afterwards, you might feel some immediate benefits, would you say? Or,
I would say, yeah, I think there's immediate and
okay.
longer term benefits. And the fact that I do it every day, I think is, obviously shows that I'm feeling good enough pretty
Right.
quickly to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
reinforcing. Yeah, yeah, you have that
it
trend. Yeah.
is.
And so if it's just increasing the time, can I ask you like why is it a minute or 30 seconds? Like when is it most likely that you're doing it?
Yeah, I don't have that's my other question for you. I don't have a certain set time during the day.
Okay.
I kind of do it in between things when I remember,
Yeah.
when I think about it. And so sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I didn't meditate and I'm going, I'm going to be recording a podcast with somebody in 2 minutes. Let me just sit here in my work chair
Okay.
and
Yeah.
meditate for like a minute and a half. It's stuff
Yeah.
like that where I'm
Okay.
not carving out a special time for it, but I
Yeah.
am doing it daily.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so there could be two ways that you go actually. So if it's
Okay.
really important to you to get at last the 5 minutes in one chunk, do you feel like that would be more beneficial than like what if you were timing yourself and it's like, okay, well, I did meditate for 20 minutes today, but it was 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here. Like, do you feel like you get better practice out of it for the longer duration?
That's a good point. I don't know. I've never actually tested what does 5 minutes,
Okay.
a
Do
chunk
for
feel
you?
like versus
Yeah.
5 minutes sprinkled throughout the day.
Yeah.
I've never tested that for myself. So I don't
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you're just
Right.
looking for 3 minutes, because maybe if 3 minutes gives you the benefits that you're looking for,
Yeah.
and maybe you can play around with 5 minutes when you do have more time. Like maybe, it's a Sunday morning. Then you can see like, okay, well, does 5 minutes feel a lot longer? Or maybe actually, I know people like can meditate for, I don't know, what is it, like hours or
Oh
something? Like some
yeah.
people,
Some people
yeah.
meditate for a few hours a day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're feeling the benefits that you're looking for after a certain time, then I would say then that sounds like your goal is at that point just keeping it at that time throughout your
Right.
week, right?
Oh, so maybe I'm already absolutely crushing this. And
Yeah.
well, this is actually
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Good.
have actually this is bringing up a question I have for you around
Okay.
the perfectionism stuff that I struggle with
Yeah.
too, because what if I am already getting the benefit of doing it the way that I'm doing it, but I'm trying to force myself into this
Yeah.
box of no, it's got to look a certain way
Dreamism.
and be a certain way and it's got to be on a mat or on a pillow, or what if the fact that I'm doing it every day is enough and I need to just
Right.
let it go, what I think this
Right.
perfect image of meditation might look like. That could also be something to think about with, I guess,
Yeah.
habit building, right?
Absolutely. I think about that with exercise a lot, right? Like there's a lot of things that come in the way of like it needs to look this certain way, right? Like, oh, well, I need to go to the gym, or I need to, or it's like, well, realistically, you can run around or, do things
Run
like
around
on
in
your
your
own. Yeah.
apartment. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And get
Right.
some cardio
Right.
benefits. Yeah. But so trying to have this perfect image of what meditation looks like, there might be some benefits of, right, okay, yeah, you're doing it on a mat, so it's more comfortable versus like, I don't know, in your office chair where you can really focus more. So if there are like changes in your environment that make it more likely that you'll do it, then that's a great strategy to do beforehand, to kind of set up your environment of like, okay, well, I have my meditation spot. I'm going to go to that specifically. And this is where in behavior analysis, like when something becomes a concerning behavior or behavior you need to address, you really need to ask yourself the questions like, well, is this unsafe? Is it impeding any other development
Mm,
or any other goals that like you might have, right? Like just thinking specifically about you. I would play around with the benefits that you feel at different durations, but if
yeah.
you feel like realistically 5 minutes is your cap for meditation versus, if you have like this goal in mind of like, yeah, I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes, you're going to not do it at all. And
Right.
so setting yourself up for success.
Let's say that, okay, well, I feel like I do have to test this out now. I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
test like the
Yeah, yeah.
5 minutes at
See
a
what,
time and the
yeah,
sprinkles and see what happens. But
yeah,
let's
yeah.
say that, I really do want to try this whole 5 minutes at a time thing.
Hmm.
Would a good positive reinforcement be something like when you do your 5 minutes, you get to have a cup of tea afterward? Like, is that
Yeah,
a nice little treat for
absolutely.
myself?
Yeah, because I know you
Okay.
love tea,
Yes.
and yeah, that's yeah, that's so yeah, absolutely. Or so there's something to be said too about making that environment where you're like doing that behavior like
Right.
as enjoyable as possible too. For meditation, yeah, this might be like counter. You like probably don't want to be drinking tea at the same time you're meditating, right? I don't know if that like breaks your focus or
It could be
yeah,
next to me, waiting
yeah.
for me until
Yeah,
I'm
maybe
done.
yeah, waiting cooling
Yeah,
down, yeah,
cooling
and so
down,
that's perfect
steeping
timing
while
for
I'm
yes.
deeping. Yeah.
Exactly, yes. Ah, yes. After I do my stretches in the morning, which was, like, one of my goals to increase
Mm.
and be consistent with, I have my coffee. So that is my routine. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
seems like and you get excited enough to have your coffee,
Oh,
right? That
absolutely.
that it
Yeah.
pulls you through maybe the stretching that maybe you
Right.
don't feel like doing every single day,
Yeah,
potentially.
exactly. And again, like I got to a point where with my stretching, something that I find reinforcing is I'll set my timer and I just like kind of throughout the day that I don't know, I'm sure there's a way to get rid of this, but your time that you last recorded shows up on your phone. Do you know what I'm
Mm.
talking?
I don't
Yeah.
really do the tech stuff, but this sounds like a fun
Okay.
thing for you to do.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it's like the opposite. I don't know how to get rid of it, so it just lives on my phone and like yeah, it's just on my home screen every single time. I can see how long I stretched for like already in the day. And so what I'm
Gotcha.
aiming for is between 8 and 10 minutes. So nothing crazy. And
Mm.
yeah, sometimes like I- I'm not even looking for it's so maintained at this point, so built into my schedule that there are some days that I'll go without it, but I can feel like okay, well, my shoulder is a little, creaky now, or my neck. And so escaping those negative feelings, like body wise, of like that discomfort, is
Right.
reinforces my behavior. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel like that. I'm going to keep up my stretching routine. So, yeah.
Aha.
So for me, it's really like what's called that negative reinforcement. I'm taking away the body discomfort. I don't want to experience that. I know I don't want to experience that. So that's why I'm increasing my stretching.
Okay, I feel very similar to you about the stretching habit that I've built. At one point, it was a goal of mine to stretch every day, and
Uh huh.
now I realize I do that without really thinking about it. Again, different times a day, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but the way that I built the habit is I used to put my yoga mat next to my bed, so all I had to
Okay.
do was roll out of bed in the morning, basically
Oh,
into
yeah.
downward dog, and there I am. I'm already
Yeah.
stretching. That helped me build the habit, and then once
Mhm.
I just realized that I didn't need that anymore to remind me. Now I just stretch whoever. Sometimes it's on a mat, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But again, that's another perfectionism thing I've had to get over because I've been thinking, oh, it's got to be on the mat. It's got to be this whole
Right.
thing. But why can't it
Right.
just be in my kitchen while I'm waiting for my food? And it might
Yeah.
be not the coolest way to do it, but it's getting the job
Yeah.
done. And I am
Right.
feeling that in my body that it feels good enough and I don't feel good when I'm not doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, that negative reinforcement at play of like, oh, I got to escape from that discomfort. Like, oh, I'm going to do that again tomorrow because that felt
Right.
really good. Yeah. And I'm sure, like body wise, biologically, I don't know enough of like what's releasing or, like serotonin kind of thing, but I'm sure there's something like that at play where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel like good now. Like my body feels relaxed or, things like that that are in themselves reinforcing as well. But
Yes.
in general, like I would say I hit rock bottom before I really got into a stretching routine because I woke up one day and I could not walk. Like my yeah, and turns out
Oh,
I thought I
geez.
like pulled something in my back or it was some like big thing. And so I went to physical therapy and he's like, your hamstrings are insanely tight. And so it was nuts to me
Wow.
that something like I could prevent too by just stretching
Right.
was what hurt so much. And so
Right.
from that experiencing those really like negative like consequences, I don't want to get there again. Exactly like we're talking about.
Interesting.
Yeah, I want to get away
Right.
from that and I just gamify it. I feel like obviously whatever works for you, but I'm so into my timer and just seeing like okay, I got, my 9 minutes today, whatever it was, or oh man, yeah, I only had time for 5 minutes, so I'm going to go back to stretching later when I have a minute or so. It's nice to have that data to look at too of like okay, I did get my time that I was looking for in.
Do you think it's beneficial or important to try to do something at the same time every day
Hmm.
or to build consistency?
Yeah.
Or does it not really matter? I mean, what kind of data do you have around that?
Yeah, well, definitely like whatever will work for you. Like
Yeah.
literally, yeah, as we're talking about like individualizing things, like if it is in the morning, like some people, the morning is a nightmare. Like they've got to get kids ready
Right.
or they've got their a meeting first thing, I don't know. And so maybe later on after like during like lunchtime is better. Something where
Mm,
it's just I would just say sometime where it's consistently available to you so that
right.
you do eliminate all the other barriers that could be interfering.
Love that. I think
Yeah.
there's been such a unnecessary amount of pressure put on this whole morning routine, morning ritual
Yeah.
idea,
Oh
and
my gosh, that's so true.
once I released that shit and said, "You know what?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be a big morning routine person."
Yeah.
Once I said, I zoomed out and said, "What if it was a daily routine or even a
Mhm.
24-hour routine?" And now I have
Yeah.
so much more space in my day to actually do all these things, but it doesn't have to be
Right.
all at once. It can be throughout the
Right.
day when I feel it. And even just that mindset shift can be so helpful when you just approach
Totally.
it a little differently because you're still following through. You're just
Yeah.
doing it with a lot more ease. Question
Exactly.
for you about let's say that let's going back to the meditation habit that
Yeah.
I'm gonna be building,
Mhm.
or trying to, we'll see. Maybe I don't need to. But let's say
Maybe you've already mastered
maybe
it,
I've
but
already
yeah.
mastered it, who knows? I might be incredible.
Yeah.
But that let's say that the cup of tea is
Uh-huh.
no longer exciting me And
Ah,
it's
great.
it's
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know, what do you call it? It's desensitized now, or I'm
Yeah,
not as
we call that
excited about it.
satiation. You're
Oh.
at that point of satiation.
Do I have to swap it with something more enticing for me now? Or do I try
Mhm.
some kind of external negative reinforcement, or both?
Yeah, so I would play around with one thing at a time, right? Because sometimes we get too excited and we try to change too many things, and then it ends up being a lot of effort, to change multiple things where it's so funny how complicated we can make things
Yeah,
where simplicity is best, right? Like, so we're
right.
talking about if it's morning that works for you, if it's night that works for you, if tea is your reinforcer, and then, yeah, you realize, like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of over tea or something. Maybe
Right.
you let yourself pick out a brand new tea so that that can be your new
Right.
exciting thing. Or maybe it's a fresh juice or something, if you still want to have a beverage or something, orange juice and
I
stuff.
like that. Just a
Yeah. Like
little
your grapefruit.
update. And
Yeah.
then let's say that I wanted to try, is there a way to try the negative reinforcement in a way that's not being an absolute dick to myself?
So with that, yeah, that's a good question. With that negative reinforcement, I know it sounds like a negative thing, but so
Right.
again, if we're trying to increase your behavior, if we could take something away that will increase your behavior, that's just what negative reinforcement is. So
Okay.
maybe you let yourself out of doing a chore because you meditated earlier in your day, or
Oh.
because you went to bed early.
So let's say, okay, if I don't do my 5 minutes of meditation, I can't watch Love Is Blind tonight. Is that a
That's
negative reinforcement example?
that's so it's still a Punisher esque, but like
Oh.
it's basically, so there's another principle. So there's
Okay.
three major principles. You're
Yeah.
looking at reinforcement. So what behaviors am I increasing over time by
Okay.
adding something or taking something away? And then I have positive or negative punishment. Basically, I'm just decreasing a behavior. Like there's social punishment all the time, or somebody gives you like a dirty look, right? Like if you burp in public, right? Or something, and you're like, oh, I'm
Uh-huh.
not going to do that anymore. Like
Right.
that was like an aversive thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or there's that third principle, extinction. Basically, reinforcement is just withheld. And so that's more of what you're talking about of
Oh.
like, okay, if I'm not going to do my meditation, I'm not going to contact my reinforcement. I'm not going to get my love is blind at the end of the
Yeah.
day. But I would say, like, be kind to yourself, like, still. And so there's something to be said
Right.
with like following through with the what you put in place of like, okay, if I want to do my stretching or my meditation, to be able to contact my love is blind later in the day,
Yeah.
chances are you're probably just going to watch it anyway, right?
Bitch, you know me.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then it's like, okay, well, I really want to watch Love is Blind. I'm just going to do a minute of meditation right now, right? Like, still trying to
Mm.
work it in because you know how important it is to yourself. Overall, you're going to feel better if you do, the meditation or stretching,
Right.
if that's like kind of what you set up to be able to watch Love is Blind. But just do it on a smaller scale.
Be
Yeah.
flexible. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, looking into, again, like reminding yourself of the rewards, right, that you want to be able to contact, that was really what's going to be the most beneficial in your habit changing, right? And so
Okay.
being able to, like, we call it, identify like the function of your behavior, or being able to figure out what's maintaining the behavior. If I'm working with a kid who might like have an unsafe behavior, there's a reason for it. There's a reason that that trend line is increasing or it's at high rates. And so that's why I need to figure out what they're getting from it. So if you're
Okay.
trying to change your habit and you can figure out what you're getting from it or what you want to get from it, depending on what the behavior is or the skill that you're trying to change, there's going to be different things that are important to you to get from it. I don't know, maybe it's like trying a different type of meditation or
That's a good idea, like making the meditation itself, bringing some
different.
novelty into that. What could make it exciting? Could it be instead of a tea, you get a
Yeah.
I have a juice afterward? Novelty seems to be
Yeah.
pretty important when you kind of get a little desensitized, potentially.
Yeah, for sure. Like it is so interesting too, because we have all of these empirical principles where we're like, okay, well, this is how we explain behavior change. This is how we go through behavior change. But novelty to people is so exciting. So I had another BCBA, another behavior analyst, talk about their theory is if they're repeating like the same strategy to a parent, right? They're not going to try it. But if they add something new to it, it could just be something minor. It makes it more likely that they'll try it because it's something they haven't heard before or haven't tried before.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so it might be just, instead of saying, stop hitting, it's like, oh, let's use calm hands instead. Maybe that's like the change, the novelty in it. And there's actually like psychological reasons, like why would use that certain words or terms too. We call them positive opposites. So when you're thinking about what you should do or what you want to change, you might want to think about it in terms of what you want to see instead of what you don't want to see. It helps your brain kind of focus on what to do instead of what not to do. Or coming from somebody else, right? Like, oh, this like expert on the subject versus like my mom talking about it,
Yeah,
you're more
totally.
likely to try it. Yeah.
I had somebody on recently who studies optimism and he
Oh,
said
okay.
something like our brains are wired to pick up unusual things. There's this misconception that our brains are wired for negativity and only looking
Okay.
for negative things, and he actually said that's not accurate. It's unusual things, which could be positive or negative, or it's
Yeah.
just something that new that we haven't heard of. So this makes sense with the novelty thing. And this brings up this idea for me, what you said, how important language is with how our
Yes.
brain works, right? Because like I could say, okay, I gotta do my meditation now. It's meditation time. Or I could say mat time. Like I get
Yeah.
on my mat and I play around and I have
Ooh.
for some reason, maybe it's time to meditate sounds really heavy, but saying
Absolutely.
that time sounds fun. Saying it differently to yourself could actually make you do it, which is so weird.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I am so aware of the language I use now, like with my kids, just in my practice, trying to really eliminate as much as possible, making things sound boring, like a demand. I'm trying to make it like fun and exciting. And again, to like a teenage client, that's going to sound different, right? It's going to be like met with some eye rolls or some like resistance if I'm like,
Yes.
oh yeah, we're gonna do this now. But for a 3-year-old, yeah, they might be all about it. But so yeah, but definitely changing the language and that just mindfulness and being able to change your relationship with certain thoughts or feelings too, of being able to say like, I notice I'm feeling upset that my husband didn't do the dishes, or like I'm noticing, yeah, I'm feeling upset that I missed my meditation today. You're
Right.
creating some distance from the thought in yourself, and so that allows a little bit of acceptance and forgiveness for yourself, right? A little bit more kindness towards
Right.
yourself versus like, oh my god, I'm such a loser, I didn't do my meditation today, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I noticed, yeah, maybe I'm feeling like my body's feeling really tight and I'm feeling really cranky because I didn't do my meditation today. And then that brings you kind of in line with like, okay, well, if I have my mat time, then I know I'll feel better. Like it brings you in
Yes.
line with what's important to you.
The way that we talk to ourselves in language is really so
Oh,
important with
yeah.
how we treat ourselves and obviously how that impacts the types of action that we take. It's almost,
Yeah.
I don't know why this came up for me, but let's say that you have two different bins that are exactly the same
Hmm.
and you call one a hamper and
Hmm.
one a trash can, but
Hmm.
they're the exactly same material, same
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
One you're gonna throw your trash in, and one you're
Yeah.
gonna throw your dirty clothes in. Isn't that weird how just the way that we label something
Oh,
impacts
yeah.
how we treat that thing? One's gonna be covered in shit, and one's gonna be clothes are gonna be inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird, right?
Yeah, our relationship with our thoughts, with ourselves, yeah, with things in our environment is so wild depending on how you label it because of the way that we learn language and the way that
Yeah,
we have learned certain things are bad, are gross, and certain things are good. And it might look the
fascinating.
same. It might generally serve the same purpose, but you call it one thing, I'm going to think that's disgusting. You call it another thing, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's neutral.
So interesting. So
Yeah.
moving on to the me watching less TV
Okay.
habit,
Yes.
because this is about taking or reducing something or taking something away.
Yeah.
how important is it for me to swap something or add something in?
Yeah.
Because I'd imagine if I'm just trying to watch less TV, what does that leave me there sitting at an empty screen, right? Like there's
Yes,
got to be something
exactly.
else I'm doing.
Yeah. And this is a perfect example, and more like a kind of general example of like a punishment procedure. Like, yeah, we wouldn't just say, okay, we'll stop watching TV. Like, all right, yeah, we wouldn't just take that away from you.
Right.
Like we wouldn't want to see just like a flat decrease. We'd want to see an increase in something, in another behavior. And so what really kind of going down to back, what does TV do for you? Like what is reinforcing about
Ooh.
watching TV? Yeah.
Oh, I find that I can really turn my brain off.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
sitting still, relaxing, not thinking about other stuff, work-related
Totally.
things, stuff I have to do. So it really helps me shut things off. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
escapism and
Yeah.
relaxation, I would
Yeah.
say, is
Okay.
what I get from it.
So we're probably not decreasing watching TV, right, to zero levels, right? And
Right.
so being able to take some data maybe on how much you're watching TV now and what that reduction looks like would be
Yeah.
beneficial. If you had to guess how
Oh
much,
god. Molly, you're really putting me on the spot.
you're like, 30 minutes. Yeah.
I interview you. I would no, I
No
would say
judgment.
it's not great. I would say it's probably like 4 hours a day.
4 hours. Okay. And again, yeah, no judgment. I don't know what the average person watches, but that's probably what I get into. And that's like later in the day, decreasing from 4 hours, let's say, it's 3 hours. And I'm
Yeah.
guessing, yeah, like myself, your TV watching comes at night, right? Like
Yes,
okay,
after my work's done, all that stuff.
right.
Yeah.
So your longer TV watching, by shortening that, is probably actually going to help your third goal, right? Of getting to bed earlier. So
Yes.
zero levels are not where something where you're going to be like, if I just said like, okay, we'll do it, like have your goal be an hour a day, that probably wouldn't even be enough, right? Like you'd probably just go over that and ignore that limit, right? Like that
Oh
would be too
gosh,
short.
I don't
Yeah.
think I could right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, one episode of like Love is Blind,
yeah,
like almost an hour.
I know. I think it's over an hour. Yeah. So that's not even like yeah,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
not fun is that? Yeah.
But you're
And
right.
so
I feel like 3 hours instead of 4, much more doable
right,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah. And you probably still, again, like as we're talking about, like at what duration do you feel like you get the benefits from meditation? At what duration do
Yeah.
you feel like you would get some escapism? Yeah.
Right.
Without it being like, oh, well, I feel like I didn't even get to relax. Like I'm gonna stop putting this in place for myself. Like I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
3 hours would probably be like kind of a realistic, maybe even like 3 hours and 30 minutes to start with. And then if that feels good, like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do 3 hours. But
Yeah.
I would go with what's feasible to actually hit as a point to stop decreasing, not
Right.
just decreasing until you're like not watching at all. The same things that you're getting from meditate, or some of the same things that you're getting from
Mm.
meditation, you're getting from watching TV. So maybe that's another
Mm.
thing where, okay, well, I'm going to meditate for another 3 minutes right now so that I feel like that kind of need is met before I even turn on the TV.
Right. Pair habits together, right? If you're trying
Yeah.
to build a
Yeah.
new one, pair one that you already have, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll always remember this. My dad does calf raises when he brushes his teeth every time.
Oh,
So as he's brushing his
perfect.
teeth, he's doing calf raises and he's
Yeah.
like, well, I might as well do something for a couple minutes. And so
Yeah.
4 minutes a day, I mean, his calves are looking great,
Yeah.
right? And so he doesn't even have to think about it because he brushes his teeth every day. And
Absolutely.
so if I am watching TV every day, I know I'm going to sit down at some point to watch something. This can kind of trigger my meditation habit
Right.
and pair it with that, which would be nice.
Right.
I like to do
Yeah.
that for myself as much as possible.
Yeah. And
Very
especially
good.
as you are kind of seeing, like, okay, well, if maybe those sprinkles of time, right, like throughout your day are as beneficial to you as like the 5 minutes all together, then maybe
Right.
it's okay, well, I'm going to do 2 minutes solid in the morning and 2 minutes before I watch TV. And that's something that is built in pretty regularly. Again, you're not going at like, I'm not completely eliminating watching TV, but I'm going to decrease to 3 hours. And again, setting up your environment to prompt you to end at 3 hours or give you a little warning of like, okay, well, it's at the 2.5 hour mark. Maybe you should start, like this last episode, or like know that you're going to be done after this last episode.
Right.
I had a family who had, they called it judgy lights, but the lights would go off at 11. And so they knew like, okay, like and this was actually just for the parents.
Yeah.
I got to go to bed. Like my cue to go to bed. And like the mom was like, well, sometimes I just turn them back on. But
Right.
it was like something something that was triggered, right? That like gave her that extra cue of, all right, well, yeah, I should get to bed now. It's getting late. And so something, whether it's an alarm going off, whether it's oh my God, I don't know what like TVs can do these days, but I'm sure they can have, you can have a timer going off, right? Where it's just like, it's going to
Oh,
turn
I'm
off.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, also, if I have a designated bedtime now, which I really would like to have, my thought was after work, instead of kind of going into TV a little too quickly,
Uh-huh.
I've been starting to take more walks after
Yeah.
work, right? When I get off work, it's time for a walk, right? That's just naturally decreasing the amount of time I even have for TV when I get home. If I stick to it,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
bedtime, then I'm
Yeah.
just naturally kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Um, and I've added things like before when I'm trying to build a habit, like, taking a bath. Taking a bath takes me away from
Yes.
TV, calling, one of my family members and chatting with
Yeah.
them, like these things that just naturally take me away from it, but it's not that I'm trying so hard not to watch it when I'm in the same room or something, but
Yeah.
it's a different environment and it doesn't feel
Yeah.
so challenging.
Yeah. And also making sure that it's not being replaced by something that you really don't like. This is a chore to do, and I don't get to do what I like, because
Right,
that's not going to
right.
be, yeah, you're probably not going to stick to that. Right.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
that
yeah,
makes sense.
I love the bath idea because I know you love your baths. I love my bath.
Yes.
And actually, something that works for me, I had the same goal of getting into bed a little earlier. And oh, I get to, yeah, like soak in the bath for a little bit, like with the candles lit. And I have time to do that if
Yeah.
I, yeah, start going to bed at 11 versus midnight. Something that you could look forward to as part of the routine. Because fucking going to bed is so boring. Like, when you think about it, like,
I would rather do so many other things than
yeah, yeah.
this right now. Talking about this, I guess like a domino effect that can happen
Mhm.
when you just focus on one new habit, right? Where if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
go to bed early, I wake up earlier, I
Mhm,
have more time that I'm taking care of myself in the morning before I start work. So therefore
mhm.
I'm feeling better throughout the day, making better decisions, right? It's just
Yeah,
this whole domino effect of feeling better all around just by doing one thing
right.
differently, which is going to bed a little earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
And I definitely try to focus on one habit at a time that could
Mhm.
hopefully create that positive, I guess, domino effect.
Uh-huh.
But I know in the back of my head, I have multiple habit goals at once, but how
Yeah.
can I hack it to where I can maybe only focus on one where the other ones kind of follow through
Yeah.
organically in a way?
Yeah, that's a great strategy because yeah, I know you said like, okay, should you focus on one? Should you focus on a couple? And really, with talking about these specific habits, yeah, if it's okay, I'm going to go to bed earlier. That's the habit I'm going to focus on. You're right.
Yeah,
Like the other ones fall in line with like supporting that change, that habit change.
right.
So that's nice, and like kind of the examples that you came up with. So it's not like they're competing against each other. So I would say if you have one habit that you've tried, or you have one behavior that you've really tried to start and it's just not working, like, and it's been something that it could be life changing for you, and it's a priority that you've identified, then devote the time and effort to that.
I do meditate and I'm doing less TV here and there. Like those
Mhm.
things I'm already kind of getting down, but
Yeah.
the going to bed early, I don't have down right now. And I
Uh-huh.
do feel like if I focus on the one that I really don't have a handle of,
Yeah.
that kind of deserves my full attention or my full focus
Right.
right now because it's gonna maybe be the hardest to build at this time.
Yeah.
And so if I focus on that, I have a feeling that, if I'm waking up a little earlier because I'm not as tired, I
Mhm.
am naturally going to have more time to meditate, or I'll feel like I have more spaciousness to meditate more often, which will lead me to make more mindful decisions about TV watching. No, I got to go for a walk and do some of these
Yeah.
things before I sit down. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This reminds me of something, and I would love your perspective on it. At some point, it was a goal of mine to brush my teeth early because I would find that I would be like falling asleep on the couch,
Oh,
and then I'm like, oh
yeah.
gosh, and now I got to brush my teeth, which is gonna wake me up
Yeah.
all over.
Yep.
So that was a goal of mine for so long, and I was never following through. I set an alarm on my phone for like
Okay.
8 p.m. You're gonna brush your teeth, and then you're gonna watch your last hour of TV or a couple hours to go to bed. Never fucking did it. I tried
Uh-huh.
alarms. As soon as I switched, this was a while ago, as soon as I switched my goal to go to bed earlier, I naturally followed through on brushing my teeth earlier. The result was the same.
Yeah.
I sometimes I would brush my teeth early and then I would just go hang out in bed and just fall asleep there. Or sometimes I would go back downstairs and watch TV until I went to bed. But it was the same outcome. I was just telling myself it's my new goal is go to bed earlier versus brush my teeth earlier. What the hell?
So that encompasses, that.
Why? Like, what is going on there where now this obstacle is not there because I'm just telling myself something a little different?
The kind of demands that you're putting on yourself, right? Instead of it being like, oh my gosh, I have to brush my teeth. I have to, get ready for bed, doing all my other like skincare routines. And then I have to go to bed earlier. If it's just kind of narrowed down into, like you're saying, like go to bed earlier, then it doesn't feel like as many demands, right? So already you don't feel like you're doing the same things, right? But you're only telling yourself the one versus like 5 different things that you don't want to do already or like are chores to do. So
so weird. I just noticed how ridiculous that was. I mean, great that I hacked it, but still, like, what the hell?
Oh, absolutely. That's where, it's just, it becomes so ridiculous in the little things that can be those behavior modifications that aren't these elaborate schemes. It's just reframing how you're telling yourself or telling yourself what needs to get done.
Do you think it's important to set a specific time? Let's say that going to bed early is my goal. Do you think a specific time of 10 p.m. is helpful, or can that be restrictive for some people where they kind of like resist that shit?
So it's not, I'm going to go from watching 4 hours of TV to maybe even watching 2. That's too significant, right? That's too hard to stick to. So instead, I'm going to gradually, maybe it's 3 hours and 45 minutes of TV. That's how I'm going to shape that behavior. It still gets you a little bit earlier in bed. And then, once you've been doing that for a couple of weeks, okay, well, now I'm going to try 3.5 hours. We set these rules for ourselves of like, okay, well, I'm going to do this at 10 o'clock. Oh, 10 o'clock passes. Okay, never mind. There's no point. The goal isn't met. Like I've already blown it. So why even try? So that's where instead of having these, and for some things, maybe you do need to have hard and fast rules for yourself, right? To stick to. But for something like getting to bed earlier and just gradually decreasing the time to a certain extent, I would say don't have a specific time. Like maybe in general, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to get in bed before 11. So that way between 10 and 11, I'm going to be ending things, starting that transition to bed. But it's not like I've ruined my whole goal, if I don't make it on the dot.
That works better for me. I'm going to be in bed before 11 or before whatever time, because then it's like, well, whether I go to bed at 9 or 10:59, I did it. And it gives me a lot more spaciousness versus 10 p.m. If my alarm goes off at whatever, 9:30, 9:45, all I want to do is tell my alarm to eat shit and keep watching TV.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do like, it really has to be so specific to you of like, what will you fight back on and what will you allow for yourself to actually do?
And your own data is so crucial too. So you can play around with that. Like we're talking about, okay, the benefits of how you feel for 5 minutes of straight meditation versus like a minute here or there. You can self-report, on how you feel after testing those 2 out. For going to bed earlier, you can see, you can take data for a week of like, okay, did I get to bed by 11? If I just kind of framed it in my mind of I want to be in bed before 11. Yeah, I did. Oh, no, I still didn't. Okay, well then what do I need to change about this still? What needs to be added? What needs to be taken away? Is there something between turning off the TV and going to brush your teeth that would be a little bit more enjoyable, right? To make you do that too.
Question.
Yeah.
Ooh. I feel like I do enjoy wiping my face with a washcloth, cold, wet washcloth.
Yeah.
I think I look forward to that much more than brushing my teeth. So maybe I do that first or something. Yeah.
If that's what would be more pleasant, then maybe just try switching that.
It also feels so much easier too, like more accessible of like, just grab a washcloth, wet it and put it on your face versus I got to take my toothbrush out. I got to take my toothpaste. I got to open it up. I got to
That's
It's still very simple, but for some reason there feels like there's a million steps with brushing my
Oh,
teeth and only like
absolutely.
2 with a washcloth. So, but
Absolutely.
I love
Yeah.
the idea of using that as more of a
Yeah.
transition into the other thing, because then I'm already
Yeah.
kind of in motion, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Object
And
motion stays in motion.
so there's behavior momentum is what we call that. So
Oh,
instead of saying like, okay, I'm going to do the hardest thing first, right? To like even start, this bedtime routine. You're going to start with the easiest thing. So that's actually perfectly in play. Like, okay, I'm going to wipe my face first because that's a lot easier than going through all the steps to brushing my teeth and then flossing. But you get it started. Yeah. And so exactly
I
what you
love
said.
that.
It starts and then it's at play. It keeps going.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
Sometimes I'll do that, cleaning the litter box. Okay, I'm just gonna go like sweep around, and then when I'm over there, okay, well I see a fat turd over there, so okay, I'm just like, like even if I kind of know like that's my end goal anyway, if I'm gonna like be scooping, it gets myself
Yeah.
started with what I deemed the easiest thing.
It's so weird that we have to constantly trick ourselves into
Yeah.
doing stuff. Gosh, it can be so exhausting, and environment is really important when you're creating behavior change. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm very much an out of sight, out of mind person. So I know that when I was getting into the habit of stretching every day, I had to have my mat not only next to my bed, but visible. It couldn't be rolled up on a shelf somewhere because that was too many barriers to actually doing it.
Yeah.
And so, what are some ways, maybe from the habits that I shared today,
Mm-hmm.
that I could set my environment up differently to make these more enticing for myself, or
Yeah.
less enticing with the TV, like hide the remote somewhere maybe? Or like
You could try that,
get
but
on a
yeah.
real tall shelf, so I have to ask Cam to get it every time.
Yeah, I think you'd find a workaway around that anyway. So maybe try that though. But with changing things, so the least effort amount of effort it takes us, the more likely we're going to do that thing. Like if I tell you I'm going to give you like let's say more money, right, for doing the harder thing, but I
Mm.
can give you less money for doing the easier thing. As humans, we will be more likely to do the easier thing for less versus the
Wow.
harder thing, for more. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see like how
Jeez.
we make choices, and how we dedicate our time. But
Right.
in general, we're pretty lazy. So
Good to know. We're wired this way, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just, human nature, so maybe don't beat yourself up about it.
Knowing that I am in predisposition to do the easiest thing to get like the biggest payout, whatever benefit, then how can I make this thing as easy as possible for myself? So increase going for a walk instead of watching TV, or we were talking about like, kind of those replacement behaviors or
Yeah.
replacement things. The leash isn't tucked away somewhere. It's right by the door. Your shoes are out. All those little things
Right.
where it's like, okay, well, right after I end this meeting, my shoes are already there. Yeah. Are there any other things you can think of where you've like made those changes and you're like, okay, now I see. Like, I already set up my environment to make it as easy as possible.
Yes, I definitely do. I have my running shoes next to the door
Oh, okay.
for
Yeah.
that reason, and
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
leashes, for the boys
Yeah.
visible and all that stuff. But what it's bringing up for me is ways to make the meditation maybe a little bit more fun,
Mhm.
because what worked for me for a while is I love pulling oracle cards, as you know.
Oh, yes.
And so I was actually leading with, okay, I'm going to pull an oracle card, and
Oh,
that always led really easily into meditation because I was already in the
yeah.
position, screen free, not looking at my phone, all that kind of stuff. And
Love
so that
that.
was, and then that kind of fell off for a while, but I think I just need to get a new oracle deck, and that
Yeah,
would
that
be
might be
make it
the
more
change.
exciting again,
Uh-huh.
or make it really easy where I literally just sit up in bed when I wake up, and it's the first thing I do in bed is for 5 minutes, I just sit there and meditate
Ooh, I
before I
love
even
that
hit the
idea too.
floor,
Yeah,
right?
you're decreasing the response effort. Yeah, you're literally
Ooh,
just waking up and have your deck right there, right? Like you can have it next to the bed and like, okay, I'm gonna pull a card
yes,
and like see what my meditation will be about if it's focused around the card too. That like we were talking about novelty earlier
right.
too. So maybe that's how your meditation is a little bit more novel from
Mhm.
day to day. But I love that in terms of again just making it as simple as possible, embedded into your routine at a time that's like pretty like feasible for you, right, to get it done.
Yeah, and a lot of people tuning in, right now who have listened for a while, they probably remember a time where I was not a meditator. I did not
Uh-huh.
meditate. couldn't get into it, nothing. And that really cracked the code for me, was having
The
an
Oracle.
Oracle card first.
Exactly. And so that's where too, kind of data for yourself of like, as we're speaking to like novelty of things, right? And how we can get so fixed on like new ideas, right? Or new strategies where if you revisit, okay, well, that did maintain it for a while. Yeah, why did that stop? Like you're saying, well, maybe I need a new deck. Maybe I need to revisit that strategy with the new deck and see if that's as reinforcing. But I love that as we're talking about kind of gradually changing behaviors, you're even starting, if you get in the position to meditate, it's quickly met with reinforcement with that Oracle deck.
Yeah.
Because that's like what's exciting to you. That's like what's you're like, oh yeah, what's it gonna be today?
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah. So you're reinforced pretty quickly after starting. We were kind of talking about earlier about like the timing of the reinforcement might be off. And so if you can work in a reinforcer, research shows 30 seconds after you've done the behavior. Yeah, it needs to be very instant for new behaviors or for recent behavior changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
good
pretty
to know.
Quickly, we know there's general rules, right? Of like, okay, well, if I do this, there's that long-term payoff, right? If I exercise, whatever, my heart will be healthy. I might not see the results today, but in a month, I know that there's certain things that are long-term payoffs. But if you want to see more immediate, consistent change with whatever your target is, having a reinforcer 30 seconds after you've done that behavior is going to be the most beneficial. If you have your tea, like it's like ready to drink right after you're done meditating, that's nice because that's immediate.
Yes.
But if there's things, and we're talking about like, okay, well, getting to bed, you're wiping your face before, that might be nice. That might not be strong enough, but you can try and see if that's enough.
Oh, this is making sense, Molly, why certain things do not work for me. Like, ooh, if I meditate every day this week, I'm going to buy myself a massage on Saturday. That never works because it's too far away. Too far away for me to get excited about it.
And
that instant gratification.
Right. And a lot of times when we do have these kind of agreements with ourselves or contingencies in play of like, oh, I'm going to buy myself this thing.
Yeah.
It's still somewhat punishing because you're spending your own money, right? It's like, oh, well, do I really want to like you know what I mean? It's not like somebody's gifting you a massage. So for some people that might be enough, right? That might be like, oh yeah, okay, I don't mind spending the money. But I know you and I, like we are, very we don't like spending money.
Yeah.
And so with like kind of rewarding yourself, that's more difficult for you to do anyway. You know what I mean? That might be something of
good
like,
point.
Yeah, that might be something that for that reason doesn't work, or
that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think about that part, but that actually that checks out for sure. Oh my gosh. So it was a double whammy for me. It was way too far away and I had to spend money. This is not really a question, but it can be frustrating when you have a habit for a while and then you fall off of a habit. I know environment, situation, and all that stuff, it comes into play. But when I look at the fact that I never watched TV in college and now I'm having a problem with TV, right? Like I was too busy for TV at one point in my life and now I freaking watch too much of it. Or I used to walk twice a day, not even thinking about it because I lived in an apartment and I had to walk my dogs twice a day at least, go to the bathroom, play, get exercise. So I was getting a lot of exercise built in. And now that we have a house and a yard, we don't necessarily need to walk them every single day because we play with them in the yard and all that. Therefore, I'm not walking multiple times a day and it's negatively impacting me. So it's just frustrating that your situation and environment is so important. And how can we manufacture that for ourselves? When you don't actually really need to do it anymore.
And that goes back into like the response effort, right? And like we're gonna do the things that meet our needs most immediately and with the least amount of effort. Your baseline levels are so important to determine what is actually realistic as a behavior change goal and where you can even start. If you're not getting 0 minutes of walking.
No. Here's what's the most frustrating part. I love going on walks. Going on walks is one of my favorite activities. And I do take them regularly, but sometimes I find that the whole day or night has gone by and I didn't walk. And
Yeah.
it's not from this place of not wanting to go on a walk. I think it's
Okay.
the barriers to get on the walk.
Trying to think of like, okay, well, how can we decrease the response effort to get out the door, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you help me with that? Can I tell you what's going on in my brain?
Yes. What's going on in your brain?
So sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I'm almost done with this work thing. So just
Uh-huh.
maybe 5 to 10 more minutes and then I'll go on a walk. And then, of course, an hour goes by and I'm like, oh, shit,
Yeah.
I got to eat lunch before whatever. I'm not being very, I guess, realistic with how much time something might take me.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. Yeah. If you're like,
Yes.
oh, this will just take me 5 minutes. But yeah, knowing like you do like to perfect things, you
Yes.
might want to allot yourself mentally more time to actually get it done. So you don't feel like,
Yes.
okay, well, I guess I don't have time for it anymore, right? That time is gone.
Yep. And then another thing is, oh gosh, if I go on a walk right now, the dogs are going to be home by themselves. They're going to be barking the whole time, just
Yeah.
disturbing the neighbors, right? Like all these things are playing in my head that make me feel like, oh, I should just stay inside and wait till Cam gets home or something, right? So it's
Yeah.
keeping me inside, but these are illusion. Nobody's made any complaints about the dogs barking, right? These are
Yeah.
not real things that are happening. These are
Right.
just internal dialogue.
And isn't it funny how punishing the thoughts of that
Yes.
are? It
Yes.
hasn't actually happened where you've had a complaint, but you're
Right.
thinking like, oh yeah, no, I shouldn't do this. This is punishing my walking behavior. I'm not doing it
Right.
because they might bark or yeah, whatnot. Like,
Right.
so with understanding that that's not actually what's at play, you know, like
Right.
that might be helpful and just being able to tell yourself like, I can go for my walk and my dogs will be okay.
Well, this is another thing that I
Huh.
have done. I will walk them, both of them at the same.
Uh-huh.
I'll go on a walk with the dogs,
Okay.
drop them off, and then
Okay.
go and walk by myself, which is kind of a reward for myself of
Yeah.
like, hey, get these boys out because they need the exercise and all the good
Yeah.
stuff that they get, and then I get to have my peaceful alone walk time.
Yeah, yeah, and is that what, like, you're really looking for? Do you find it reinforcing enough to, like, have the walk on your own? Or
Yes, I do
yeah,
like the walk. I do like the walk on my own. I do like the
okay.
walk with other people. Like I like walking with Cam or a
Yeah,
friend or something. But
yeah,
I think for me, it's I love being out in the sun. So
uh-huh.
sunshine is a big positive reinforcer for me. Getting
Yeah,
some
yeah,
sun. I also just like looking at people's flowers and houses and
yeah,
just all the stimuli that happens on a walk, looking at the
absolutely.
sky and the birds. The movement feels really
Yeah,
good. And I'm a big fan, and I've learned this about myself. I'm a big fan of one activity that hits a lot of needs at once. Like
yeah,
I get a lot of bang for my buck with a walk. I'm getting
okay,
vitamin D, I'm getting exercise,
yeah,
I'm looking at nature, which is obviously good for your emotional well-being. All these things that I get from
mhm,
just taking a walk. So I know that kind of like a little gamified situation where what is one thing I can do that gets me as much benefit as
absolutely.
possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
walking on a treadmill inside wouldn't give me the same excitement.
totally. The one, barrier you've already alluded to is being more realistic about how much time something will take you to finish.
Yeah, right.
So, if you have a project that you're working on and you're telling yourself 5 minutes, I think starting to be realistic with how much time it's actually gonna take you,
Yeah,
is the first step to working in your walk kind of time
right.
still. What time are you typically ending work right now?
5:30.
5:30? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, what, you're making dinner right away, or what's your, like,
I have been trying to go on a walk and then
okay.
come home, make dinner, and
Yeah.
then get into the TV time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then get on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that might be maybe, is Cam already, I know sometimes he's already home, but, like, if he's
Yeah,
not
he gets
home,
done
like,
the kind of the same time that I do. He'll either walk
okay.
with me or I'll go on my
Oh,
own.
okay. It might be just that reminder of, as you're ending work, like, okay, I'm gonna go for my walk because, yeah, I'm getting sun, I'm getting the exercise, I'm getting all these benefits, right? And so using that
Yeah.
language with yourself to remind yourself of why it's important that you walk.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess, perfectionism is definitely a theme, and
Yeah.
the reason I'm going into so much detail for myself and that Molly and I are going into so much detail is we're hoping this helps you plug things in for yourself that are barriers for new habits and stuff, but I realize that I think sometimes an obstacle is the fact that I feel like I'm not allowed to walk by myself until
Mm,
I've walked the dogs because I'm being a bad dog parent.
yeah. So
And
there's that
so That's another obstacle. So I also need to tell myself, I'm allowed to go on a walk by myself. I'm going to walk the dogs later. They're going to
Yeah,
be okay. They have two
absolutely.
different yards to play in if they want to go outside, right? And so
Yeah,
that can be, I think I'm realizing that's maybe a little bit of an issue too,
yeah,
where I'm kind of punishing myself a little bit for not
yeah.
taking them first or something.
Mhm,
And another thing you made me think of this too, is that whole when I'm telling myself 5 minutes,
mhm.
maybe the fact that I can even say, "Hey, 5 more minutes," maybe that is a good stopping point for me. If I
Yeah,
have the time to say, "I can take 10 more minutes to work on this," I'm
mhm.
usually at some kind of a stopping point if I'm talking to myself like that, and
Okay.
maybe I need to change that into, "I think this would be a good time for a walk," or something.
Yeah, absolutely, and that might be depending on what you're working on, right?
Yeah.
That walk might be beneficial and like, okay, well, game planning for the next day, right? I ended here. So instead of feeling like you need to be at like a point in your work, I guess by if you're telling yourself like, okay, I have 5 more minutes. Oh,
Right.
well, I'm going to go on my walk and I can continue thinking about this, or I'm going to go on my walk so I can
Oh,
figure
I
out how
like
to
that.
wrap this up for tomorrow
Oh.
or something. I loved how you pointed out the guilt. I need to go on a walk with the boys instead of it being like, well, no, you're allowed to go, yeah, on a walk by
Right.
yourself around the neighborhood. Yeah. Like
Right.
that's fine. Being
Yeah.
able to like tease that apart and not feel like you can't give yourself that. Think
Well, it's
about.
almost like I have to give myself the permission to give myself the reward first sometimes, if this
Uh-huh.
is even a thing in your field, where it's like, my reward would be going on a walk by myself first and then
Uh-huh.
walking the dogs later.
Uh-huh.
Even though I'm probably, I was rewarding myself with a lone walk after walking them.
Right. That's so funny because if somebody's generally explaining that, I'm like, okay, well, that's not a reinforcer comes after behavior.
Right. What is this one called?
Yeah.
The reverse
But
reinforcement rule by Delanie
yeah.
Fischer.
Yeah,
How
it's
to
called
get
blaming
nothing done.
yourself. Yeah, yeah. So there is something called non-contingent reinforcement. Okay,
Oh, do
and so
tell.
yeah, so you might like this. Yeah. So
Sounds
basically,
like it.
non-contingent reinforcement is a time-based schedule of reinforcement, and so it is a good place to start sometimes instead of saying like, I need to do this before I get my walk. It does depend on what you're trying to change. Okay, if you're trying to
Yeah.
put things in place for yourself, like I'm trying to increase my walking. If
Mm.
your walking is already a hard goal to hit or a behavior change to have happen, giving yourself things on a time-based schedule instead might be a better fit. So that
Mm.
does play into that non-contingent reinforcement.
Yeah.
But does that make
Okay.
sense?
So I might go on my like kind of lunchtime walk by myself, which
Okay.
to me is definitely a reward.
Right.
And
Okay.
then when I wrap up work, I think going on a walk with all the boys, with Cam and our 2 dogs, Maverick and Goose,
Uh-huh.
is also enjoyable, and that
Uh-huh.
feels like another reward. So I am walking the dogs and they are
Uh-huh.
getting their walk, but I both things kind of feel like rewards versus one feels like my solo walk always feels like a reward. Walking the
Yeah.
dogs by myself does not. That feels like a chore. I'll be
Okay.
honest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's going to be some times when, Cam's not there or something where I need to walk the dogs
Right.
and I've already had my walk reward for the day.
We're talking about like walking, it's a generally
Yeah,
like beneficial thing. And
right,
so I don't want to say like, okay, if you already had your walk reward at lunchtime,
right.
you need to walk the dogs at this point or like not go on a walk at all. Like if the overall goal is you want to walk and
Yeah.
it's giving you so many benefits, then I would still say like allow yourself the time at later in the day to have your
Mm,
walk first and then walk the
mm.
dogs because that might be actually like as we were talking about that behavior momentum
Yeah, that's
that
true.
yeah you've already got your shoes on it's less effort at that point
Yes,
to get
that's
the dogs involved if
true.
you've already done like a walk your second walk by yourself. Yeah,
Oh,
so you like non-contingent reinforcement and you like your behavior momentum. Yeah.
this is the one where you just do anything whenever and hope for the
Yeah.
best? That's the one I like.
Yeah, there
Molly,
you
this
go.
was so fun. Very helpful. I could talk about this for literal hours.
I know,
And
it's so crazy.
just to wrap things up, is there a habit that you're working on right now? And how are you hacking that for yourself?
Yeah. So I do jujitsu, right? And Muay Thai, and
Mhm.
trying new things in both martial arts is very difficult because response effort wise, you go to what works, and it can be very punishing, if you try something new and get hit in the face, or,
Oh, I bet.
or get choked, yeah, in jujitsu from like trying that
Right.
new thing, right?
Oh my
And so,
goodness.
yeah, for jujitsu specifically, there's certain things that I want to get better at. And so I've been trying to, yeah, take what I know with behavior analysis and apply it to a completely different skill with jujitsu.
Mm.
And so there's certain moves that involve the lapel. If you're wearing the uniform, the gi, like there's certain things
Okay.
that you can do with someone else's lapel. And so being able to get into certain positions though that are uncomfortable, that's what I want to increase. I want to try going to those positions more often. And the
Oh.
way that I'm going to make it easier for myself is by doing it against people that I don't think are going to crush me when I try out those positions. So starting with like, not like response effort wise, knowing I can get back to my comfortable positions very quickly, but just trying to increase the amount of times I go to those new positions. So I'm going to focus on one specifically,
Ah.
getting to that new position. And I realized I'm not taking data for it. So I have, and that's a big thing for me, being able to reflect on how often I've tried it, or how, if it's at 0 levels, it's like, okay, well, obviously, if you start recording it, you're holding yourself accountable. So for me, like even recording it, and again, like kind of gamifying it of like, okay, well, I
Yeah.
tried it 2 times this week. I'm going to try for 3 times next week to get into that position.
Right.
That could be how I shape that behavior to happen more often. Letting myself try new things, and my hobbies is kind of what my habit building thing will be.
When you wanna try something new, let's say
Mhm,
it's a skill or it's a new hobby or
mhm.
maybe something you're a little bit nervous about, doing it with the least amount of, I guess, risk, right? Like,
Yeah.
this brought up so many things about, just for, creatives and stuff tuning in where,
Mhm,
somebody wants to paint on canvas for the first time, but
mhm.
they're maybe too nervous to paint on a giant canvas because 'cause they're like, "I don't know what
Yeah.
the fuck I would paint on that."
Oh my gosh,
So
that
they
seems so
start
overwhelming.
Right,
Yeah.
so they start with maybe a smaller one. They're like, "Okay, I know I
Mhm.
can paint a flower on this," and then
Mhm.
working your way up or building up to,
Yeah.
a bigger canvas or something. That is very
Yeah.
interesting.
Right, absolutely. Or for writers, yeah, okay, well, instead of like, okay, my end goal will be writing the script, I'm just gonna write some dialogue, like for
Yes,
a page or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
The little
So
bite-size
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And just seeing like, okay, well, does that lead to the results I want? And maybe it's starting small, but knowing what your like short-term goals are gonna be. So it's like, okay, well, I hit this goal of yeah, filling up my small canvas. Next, I'm gonna go to a larger size canvas before I go for, my end goal of that big canvas, but being
Right.
able to work up to that.
I love this stuff so much. I don't know what it is about my personality, but
Yeah.
I love the gamification and trying to hack your way into doing great things for yourself.
It's incredible, like being able to really analyze your own behaviors, right? And what's
Yeah.
important to you, and then realize, okay, well, I say this is important to me, but why am I not doing it? So
Yes.
really digging into what the barriers are, and yeah, knowing hopefully a little bit for listeners, like throughout this dialogue, if there is something that you have identified that you want to be better at or try to increase, then you can, okay, first ask yourself, what's it, why is this important to me, what am I getting from this, right? Am I
Right.
trying to get something, get away from something? And then being able to feed that with something else, those little tweaks along the way, like we're talking about behavior momentum, like start small and increase from there, reduce the effort at first and increase from there. Are you changing the duration of this, the frequency? There's a million questions. So I know that's what it
Yeah.
is, such a like, it's a juicy topic because there's so much to talk about.
I just thought of something else, Molly. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. I will let you go at some point in the next 12 hours. But what I brought up of, oh, I'm worried that the boys are going to bark if I'm by myself on a walk, all that stuff. So when we first got Maverick, we did get a noise complaint at our first apartment together, right? So it's almost like part of my brain is still living 7 years ago or 6 years ago, instead of in the present moment where that is not happening. And so that is an interesting part of barriers too, is how do the past experiences kind of impact how your brain is working now.
Absolutely.
And separating that experience from the present moment. And I know that sometimes, I've gotten thrown off of a habit that I was really proud of, that felt like a good habit, because maybe something traumatic happened in my life. And so my entire schedule was thrown off to where I wasn't going to bed early and doing anything because I was just trying to get through the freaking day.
Yeah, something along those, and being able to like coordinate care though with the specialist of like, hey, is there any medical reason why this would be impacting this person's behavior? Is an important thing to rule out. So actually, I'm really glad that you brought up trauma itself, because there might be, things like for mental health or like psychologically or medically that are barriers that need to be addressed first before the behavior change principles are even like appropriate. Or maybe they can be used simultaneously, but as long as we're cognizant of those medical barriers, like if it's a kid that's not eating, maybe fruits and veggies, let's say, but they have like loose teeth at the moment, or there's, some kind of discomfort. It's like, okay, well, once that's alleviated, once that's addressed medically, then we can talk about increasing, this behavior. That's just like a very like basic example, but
especially if you maybe don't know what the trauma or medical thing is, and you think somebody is just something isn't working with the behavioral change for some other reason. Like that's a whole nother component that is really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where we try to like be very careful about making sure that we do have those other things accounted for, whether it is mental health or medical concerns, that like, okay, well, there isn't a physical need for intervention first, or medical need for intervention, like this doesn't need to be addressed first. Okay, great, now we can like have our behavior change strategies. Or again, maybe sometimes it's in line, but we're talking with that person so that we're coordinating care with them so that they are aware, and we're working in conjunction with them, so everything's being addressed accordingly. Definitely, like
in I was the saying, right like, order, right?
And even like kind of going back to my stretching example, and like hitting rock bottom and seeing like a PT, a physical therapist, for the first time. It's like I had these goals in mind for forever of like, oh well, I want to be more flexible, like I want to be able to do things in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and flexibility will help. And so I had identified like my reinforcers or my reasons why, but I still didn't do it until I got to the point where exactly, I had to. And then it was seeing a specialist, right, of like, oh, it like really break down like, okay, well, this stretch is going to address this and make this feel good, so there was like specific things that they gave me that helped me increase that behavior overall too. And they explained something that I thought was really cool, with you need like to hold a stretch for at least 30 seconds to be able to feel the benefits. And so that came in line with like me gamifying it of like, okay, well, I've held this for 30 seconds, 45 seconds. I feel like I needed a little bit longer today. Maybe I'll hold this one for a minute, but then move on. So things were like short enough, but I was holding them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because then you felt like you were doing a little extra credit.
Yeah, exactly.
And that feels good too.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Let me tell you, when I look at my timer and I see I've got extra credit, it feels really good.
Is there anything else that you want to leave people with that we didn't cover, or like final words of wisdom? And then we'll wrap it up.
I think I love how we touched on like being kind to yourself and kind of reframing things. I think that's so important, to just talk to yourself as if you would a good friend, right? And so just changing those little kind of, I feel like, habits throughout our day can make like long lasting changes for ourselves. And there's a saying, reinforcement or behavior goes where reinforcement flows. And so if you really figure out what your needs are and what will be reinforcing to you, that's where you have your behavior change.
So great. Oh, wow. The human brain. What a magical and horrifying place.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
All right. Well, I love you. Thanks so much.
I love you too.
All right. Hope that gave you some ideas for your own habit building. And just a quick update. By the way, this feels like a throwback to the hashtag goals segment me, Taylor, and Kelsey used to do, where we would share very honest updates about a goal that we were working towards. For those of you who have been tuning in a while, you may remember that several times in a row, I wanted to stop eating so many bagels in a day because it was not making me feel good. And really could have used Molly's expertise back then, now that I think about it. Cut to several years later, I rarely eat bagels, not because I'm not trying to, but my behaviors have changed in so many ways. So, anyway, life is weird. Okay, so where I'm at with meditating, going to bed early, and watching less TV. So, I noticed that I'm meditating for a bit longer most days. I can't really feel a difference between a couple minutes here and there, and around doing it for 5 minutes, like Molly and I talked about. I mean, perhaps if I tried 20 minutes versus 2 minutes, I would feel a significant difference, or maybe not. I don't know. But this conversation with Molly really made me realize that I've already built a meditation practice that works for me for now, anyway. Um, until I might want to alter it again. But this was really huge for me to realize because as an ex-workaholic who could barely sit still for many years, this really showed me that I can change my behavior. It was a great reminder for myself. And it was just a nice little confidence builder in that department. It kind of changed my identity a little bit as a meditator, not somebody who's trying to meditate, therefore I'm failing all the time. So that was really cool. And she unlocked that for me by just asking me those handful of questions that you heard. And then for the TV time, I am watching less TV on most nights, you guys, most nights. So a reminder that really helped me in this conversation was when Molly shared about behavior momentum and that, a behavior in motion stays in motion. So the days that I go for a walk pretty much as soon as work is done, or at least close to it, when I get home, because I'm already moving my body in that way, it flows very easily into preparing some dinner for that night. So both of those things have helped me kind of naturally cut down on TV because they take up a decent amount of time in my evening after work. So by the time I do sit down and start watching, the nights where I'm genuinely tired and kind of falling asleep towards the end, it's so easy for me to go to bed early. So it's nice when I can just fill some of that before time with other things because when I get tired, staying up to watch TV isn't desirable even. But this is where I'm struggling. It's the nights I don't feel tired that I kind of push it. So I have reduced my TV time a bit more for sure by adding activities and things. But it's not consistent the way the meditation situation is, where I feel like I have built that habit without having to think about it. And for early bedtime, it's still the least consistent out of the three habits, at least. Actually, that might not be true. I'm just not measuring it. I'm more focused on the TV stuff. So it's very possible that less TV time and earlier bedtimes are happening on the same nights. But I see this as I've basically nailed my meditation habit for myself, or, at least refined it and just approach it a little bit differently as trusting myself that I'm going to do it. And I don't need a bunch of reminders, which is cool. And I think that approach has just made it feel more effortless to do it for longer periods of time here and there throughout the day. Then TV has reduced overall, even if it looks a bit different every day. Some days I watch a little bit more, sometimes less. And then early bedtime, I'm just not really sure quite yet, but I do plan to focus on that once I get the walks and food prep and things like that down a little bit stronger. That just feels easier for me right now. It feels less restrictive, and I think that's probably why I'm following through with it. So, although logically I do know that if I focus on an early bedtime, it'll likely reduce the TV watching by default because I'll wake up earlier and then with my activities that I've added, I'll get tired earlier. Boom, boom, boom. I get it. But the post work activities are just feeling more enticing right now. And I think my next approach with early bedtime will actually be flipping that around and just trying to wake up earlier instead. That feels, that also feels less restrictive for me than, okay, I'm restricting time in the evening versus I'm gaining time in the morning. So that's another code that I've realized with my brain. I like to do something that gains something maybe versus feels like it's a little bit more punishy, like kind of we talked about. But anyway, yeah, I think I'll be less resistant to going to bed early if the focus is more on waking up early. But the biggest thing that stuck with me from this conversation is the novelty piece of all of this. I realize I have this implemented in the things that I do consistently, and now I'm able to better think of things I can include for the stuff I'm not really doing. So for me personally, that novelty is so vital for me to want to transition from one thing to the next, whether it's from sitting down on the couch to getting up and out the door to take a walk. For example, I love going on a walk because I listen to a new podcast episode on a walk. So finding a topic I want to learn about and pushing play is actually the thing that I'm excited about that gets me out the door. And then once I'm outside, I'm enjoying it. And I may even turn the podcast off for the second half of my walk and just, enjoy the peace and quiet and nature and everything. But what gets me excited is, getting to click that button. And then I have noticed that what gets me excited about going to bed early are the days that I know my husband is going to make me a really delicious cup of coffee in the morning with our espresso machine. So I realize I just need to start making myself coffee or something similar in the mornings to get me excited for waking up earlier. I know that maybe my husband's not going to make it for me, but I can make it for myself, which I used to do before we got an espresso machine. So I'm just kind of going back to something that I remember used to work for me, but because our environment a little bit shifted when we got this espresso machine and my husband started getting excited about making coffees, I stopped making my own stuff on the days that he wasn't going to. And I think that, as silly as it sounds, really impacted how excited or not excited I was to wake up in the morning. It's just so weird, these small little things that we can miss if we're not really analyzing this shit. Okay, we already talked about how I need to pull an oracle card to get me into the meditation position. That's, a fun novelty thing. I kind of reflected on what I get excited about with stretching and how I've been able to keep that. Again, as somebody, if you've been tuning in for years, I was never somebody who stretched every day. And that took a long time. But I realized what excites me, that quick, within 30 seconds thing that Molly talked about, is I love hearing and feeling my first back crack. I don't know why it is so fucking satisfying to either, bend down or do a squat or whatever. So I realize that happens so quickly within the first 30 seconds and it carries me through the whole stretch. And then after each one of these things, I feel like I'm getting rewarded because I genuinely feel better after these things. Basically, I look at this for myself as bookending my habits. Something quick and juicy and sexy up top, something really enticing. And then that end piece is just the reward of a little bit of euphoria feeling is a nice way to wrap it up. Or sometimes I might have a cup of tea or something next to me, after a stretch or something. I know I'm going to be able to take that sip after I, put my mat away or whatever it is. The start and the finish is pretty important, and the middle kind of taking care of itself for me. All right. I hope this insanity and deep dive into my brain helped you in some way today figure out what can help you crack the code for your own habits. I wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Add something just undeniably hot to your next habit, something that you just gotta have within 30 seconds. And I will talk to you soon. So glad you tuned into Self-Helpless. If you felt supported by this or a past episode, here's how you can support the show. Feel free to share it with someone who may enjoy the variety of conversations we have here. You can also become a monthly or annual patron of the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless, where you can vote on topics, submit your own, or be a quiet supporter. 100% of Patreon and merch proceeds go directly to operating costs, keeping all episodes free, consistent, and available across platforms with minimal ads. If you want to show some extra love, you can leave an Apple Podcast review or send an email to share how Self-Helpless has impacted you. All of this and more goods can be found at selfhelplesspodcast.com. All right. Love you big time, and thank you so much.